Okay, we're live. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Oop. Stop. Stop it. We'll do it again.
Okay.
I clicked. It focused the window, and then it didn't actually click. So Windows focused. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 69th episode of Security on the In30 Podcast Network. We're joined by Tom. Say hi, Tom.
Howdy, everyone.
And Tom suggested that we do a rapid fire, 4 minutes each topic, no stops, pardon the interruption style if you know the ESPN reference. And we're going to just start with PGP old versus new.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to jump right into it. Things are going to go fast, and you might want to take some notes. All right. There was a great article that was put out, I'm going to say this week or last week. Moxie Marlinspike also put out an article on PGP saying, hey, look, this thing's old and crufty, it's hard to use, the people that send me things through PGP, it's not terribly useful or helpful, these things really have no purpose for existing. I wish it would go away. I wish something new and better would take its place. And of course the internet as a whole said, hey, if anyone can build a better crypto system, Mr. Marlinspike, it's you. So we all hold our breath waiting for that system. That's not sarcasm. He's built some great things in the past, and I'm sure he can build, the next open crypto that we all use from now on. Which spawned a lot more articles about saying, hey, PGP is great, and it's the best thing we have right now. We know the NSA hates PGP, so let's keep using it. I think really the end of this is we all know PGP sucks. It's horrible to manage. Keys are annoying. It's confusing for people. It's confusing for non-technical people. Even technical people slip up. And I hope something better comes along. But for now, keep on rocking PGP.
Well, I mean, like I said, in August or so, a while ago, I tried sending my first encrypted email. It was hard. And the running joke is PGP day one. What's it called? Yes, the government's not going to stop me. Day 2, the UI is ugly. Day 3, I'm too lazy. And it's basically what it is. It's just so hard to do. It's so hard to explain. And here's the thing. I think iMessage and I think Threema and I think TechSecure, all these things have better ways of doing it. WhatsApp. That we need to leverage, and we can't get rid of PGP, but I think we have to try and change it so it looks a little more pretty and a little more shiny, and go from there.
Even something really solid with a decent interface like OTR is still horribly annoying to use, especially when you've got different keys and then you've got the verification thing. I understand they're doing the best with what they have, but we really need something that's just dumb and secure and something that if my grandmother sends me a message, it's going to be perfect forward secret, it's going to be verified, all this fun, crazy, awesome security jazz built right in. But right now, we don't really have that. There are a lot of great projects going on to try to make that, but nothing we can really comment on right now. It's still pretty early days to kill off PGP.
My only problem, and I'll just end on this, is that I like having a cross-platform chat solution, whether that's email or chat or whatever it is. I think I'm one of the rare people. Everyone at this point is just on their phone, and that's okay. But I like sitting at my computer. I like a full keyboard. I like doing all that. And to have a message on my phone versus the computer is just too hard to manage. So we need that cross-platform ability. Okay, next topic. Next topic is
email.
Hillary email. Look, I think Hillary's a boss for saying, you know what, I'm not going to use Yahoo. I'm going to use my own email server. And I don't know who figured it out, but I love it. I don't. It's probably not the right answer, but I like it.
I think the main issue is, I don't know who's securing the server. Did she hook up a Linux box somewhere and install SendMail and Dovecot, or, did she install a base package somewhere? Is she running a Windows mail server? Is she running Exchange out of her home? There's some, details there. Who's managing security? Is it patched? Where's her domain name registered at? I think she's using Network Solutions that I heard. They don't have a great track record as far as security goes. Can someone impersonate that? There's a lot of questions there that you think, well, okay, if you're using a state.gov email address, you probably wouldn't run into a lot of these lower-level problems. And I think that's kind of what people are concerned about. The way I see it, I understand. Work email sucks. It really does. It's awful. It's horrible to use. It's annoying. You can't connect to it from everywhere. I've been on, secure work systems before like that, especially government systems. But the point is, when you're in that position, sometimes you have to play by those rules. And when it comes to security, she would probably be better off using something built by the U.S. government instead of running her own solution.
Well, okay, so we didn't cover the story. Basically, Hillary Clinton was found out to be running her own email server instead of using, like you said, the state.gov while she was Secretary of State, and this opens up a Pandora's box of people yelling and screaming. Let me ask you this, Tom. Is it better to Yahoo or if you're going to do this, Yahoo or your own personal email server?
Frankly, it depends on what country you live in. If you are someone from India, let's say, you should not be using a Gmail address for your government business. The NSA has full rights to go in and snoop on you. You should use your own email server. But if you're in this country, if you're using two-factor authentication, if you've got a rocking password built by a password manager, which you should be using anyway, the big players are probably a little more secure. That said, way more easy to get a subpoena for, but they've got guys manning those stations 24/7.
The best part of the article that I read is that the physical security, wherever that webmail server was probably guarded by the Secret Service.
Right.
If she had it in her house, which I just thought, I don't know, that was like the best line. But
yeah.
I think Hillary still
for physical security, I bet it was top notch.
I have a feeling Hillary's still running a BlackBerry, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
Can't fix them all.
I don't know. I saw that article. I thought it was the best article of the week. But next, journalism tools. You got to communicate with someone. How do you do it?
Okay, so Citizen4, fantastic documentary. Greenwald, Snowden, Laura. They've got literally like all the big players in the Snowden leaks, all the good guys in a movie together talking about this stuff, talking about security. Really well done. They've got some great shout-outs in there to fantastic technologies. And there's an article out there, and I will, we'll have this in the show notes so you can grab this. I just want to give off some quick shout-outs. We've talked about this stuff before, but I want to mention it again. This is stuff that is, at the moment, we consider it secure. At the moment, we consider it, fairly well guarded against even state adversaries. So, of course, your standard Linux distributions. Running Linux is fantastic. You know the code. Backdoors are going to be fairly easily spotted. Security issues are fixed rapidly. It's just awesome. And not just any Linux, but if you want it to be really secure, you can use Tails. They call it an amnesiac anonymous distribution. Runs on the Tor network. There's another one for you. We love Tor. And it's a live system that you can boot into. You don't have to install it. You do whatever you want online and shut it down, and it forgets everything. It's absolutely fantastic. Of course, to mention Tor, the Tor browser. If you want to go, I think, let me make sure I've got the website here. I don't have the website. Okay, anyway, go ahead and search around torproject.org. You can grab their Tor browser bundle. If you want to look at stuff securely online, download that and head off browsing. Just remember, when you're logged into Tor, if you log into Facebook, you've now identified yourself. So stay away from anything that could personally identify you. Other technologies, of course, GPG, which we covered previously earlier this episode. Secure Drop, which allows you, as a journalist, to put out a Dropbox and say, hey, you can put your files here securely, and I will be able to access them securely. It's a fantastic tool. Most normal users won't have a use for it, but if you need a place, a Dropbox that's going to be secure, check out SecureDrop. And then OTR encrypted instant messaging. You can find this technology in a lot of different apps and programs. Trillion, Pigeon on the desktops. You've got Chat Secure, Beam, I believe, on Android. Yeah, great stuff. And
we talked about all these on previous episodes, all these technologies, and you just have to remember, all these things are hard to use. I mean, we're trying to get all this stuff to be better, but before you start sending encrypted anything, practice first.
Yes, please set up users and have at it.
Like, really practice. You can send us encrypted emails if you want. Don't just make the mission critical stuff at the last minute and then you have to deal with it because who knows, you may do it wrong and then you're compromising things and going from there. It's all this stuff, even with instructions, especially PGP email or GPG email, it just is radically complicated.
Right, you're gonna need to practice some before you do this stuff for real. If you're looking to take over the world, send your super secret death ray plans, after you've got a handle on this stuff. Send cat pictures at first.
And then, it's not in the rundown, but read up on the law. Read up on what laws that there are there for knowing passwords and everything else in the country that you're at. Because you may be required to give up your password, and then you have to come up with a plausible deniability scheme or anything else, but know the laws because obviously they're important.
Yep. Okay, next topic. We have got the theft of SIM keys by the NSA and GCHQ, which is essentially the British NSA, except a little worse. Okay. I want to say we pronounce this as Gemalto?
I know nothing about this other than reading the headline and seeing that the government can access our SIM cards. That's all I got.
Right. So there was another Snowden document thrown out there, and it looks like the NSA and GCHQ have orchestrated successfully a hack of one of the largest SIM card manufacturers in the world, and gotten kind of the encryption keys for those systems, or for those SIM cards. Meaning, if you're having a conversation on a cell phone, that data is pretty much clear text. Without having to get a warrant, without having to tap into the phone company, all that stuff you can assume is compromised. Now,
that's not for you and I. That's for the government.
Right. Yeah. No. Not. I can take these codes because I don't have these codes. There's some hacker somewhere out there can take the codes, although they might be floating out there somewhere. No, but the main thing this article talks about is the NSA and GCHQ specifically breaking in, stealing these encryption keys, and getting away scot-free until this paper came out. Now the company says, hey, there's some things that don't line up, and we don't think we've been breached. Personally, I don't buy that. It could have been, now, again, this all is fitting, our preferred narrative, but it could have been a gag order, by their government. They're not, this company is Dutch. They're not in the UK. They're not in the US, but there might have been some strong words from their government. We don't know, and frankly, we'll probably never know the full truth of this, but in the meantime, assume that any conversation you have on a cell phone, it could be tracked. And hopefully you're assuming that already.
Well, we're talking... So the cell phone, what happens if you use some sort of VoIP solution? I mean, it used to be Skype, and it's no longer Skype, right. But I don't know... Whatever,
well,
what was it? Red Phone. Red Phone was the silent circle people saying this is secure communication. Yep. I think because it goes over data, that's encrypted versus the cell towers, which are fair game.
Right. That's one thing to mention here is essentially it's a man-in-the-middle attack. But if you take the content you're shipping across that wire and you encrypt the content before you ship it across, yes, as long as you're using strong encryption, as long as you're using a system that's not going to be man-in-the-middle attacked, yes, that would be secure. Which brings us into the next topic. Open Whisper Systems has a new app. I haven't used it. I've heard good things about it, called Signal. It's essentially exactly that. You can make voice calls that are encrypted, and it works great over a cell phone network.
Okay. I mean, I guess there's still a need for making voice calls.
Yeah.
I have not. I mean, I hear this all the time. I hear people, you don't want that big of a phone, and I go, yeah, but you don't make voice calls. You're not going to put it up to your head, things like that. The number of people making voice calls on their cell phone has gone way down, but there's still a need for it. And I'm assuming, is this free Signal or is this a paid service?
You know what? I don't know yet. It is open source software.
Because, I mean,
it looks fantastic.
I mean,
I took a casual glance at it before the episode.
Red Circle, I can't remember. Silent, whatever it is.
Silent Circle.
Silent Circle. I mean, they gave you 2 free years and then a couple of invites to give to your buddies for 2 years. But again, that costs some money. And from there, and when it costs money, it's very hard to get people to say, you know what, I want to pay for it.
Right.
And we have to go from there.
It is compatible with Text Secure, and the future of Signal, it says here, will be voice and text communication platform. All private, all encrypted on the device before the network, and they're working on a browser extension. And again, open source stuff, so we can check it out, we can look at it, and thank you, Whisper Systems, for keeping this stuff running. This is great stuff. So I'm sure we'll talk about this in the future. We'll test it out. If you want to get an early look, again, don't do anything that's going to get you arrested. Don't do anything your life depends on this system. It's still going to be out there. It's still going to be hammered on a little bit. But for playing around, for checking out a crypto system, maybe you're a programmer and want to help, jump in there. Test it out. Give them some feedback and let them know.
Okay. Hard drives? Is that next?
Hard drives is next. So we kind of had an idea that not only that this was possible, but this was going on. Now we've basically got all the confirmation we need. The NSA can implant hard drives with essentially malware, firmware. And this isn't like, oh, well, hey, this hard drive has a virus. Let me just format it and be done. No, this is like drive-level firmware that says, oh, you need to read this sector? I'm going to spin the needle this direction and push it over here and read the sector. I'm going to transmit this data through the SATA cable on the back. Like, it's low-level stuff. This deals with the core of how hard drives work. It looks like the NSA has been able to create and deploy a really nasty malware firmware, complete with using hidden storage. So your drive will say, hey, I've got this much space, except there's a secret little partition you will never see, not even with partitioning tools, a secret little part of the drive that doesn't show up because the firmware doesn't let it show up, that they can put this data. This gets past full disk encryption. This gets past everything. Because when your system's on, the hard drive will go, oh, wait a minute. I should be looking for this type of data. Or I just received a signal to get this sort of thing. And it'll take the data the NSA is searching for and put it on this spot in the drive. For either collection by law enforcement later, to play it back somehow, to interface with another piece of spyware in your operating system. Basically, whatever you can imagine could happen with that hard drive. It probably can't spin out of control and explode. Most likely not. But when it comes to breaking or getting around full disk encryption, that's essentially what this is designed to do.
And do we know how to stop this? Do we know? We don't know anything other than it can be done.
It can be done. There can be tools. Theoretically, you could craft a tool to compare your hard drive's firmware and its known good version against the one loaded. But that's kind of
Have you
it's
ever
a little
updated?
complex.
Have you ever updated your hard drive firmware? I don't think I've ever done that.
I have not. I've updated a lot of firmware in the past, but hard drive firmware, not on my list.
I mean, I could see something. I can see a national security letter going out to Hitachi, Seagate, Western Digital, all these companies.
Oh, yeah.
And just, I mean, from years and years ago, there's nothing you can do. You can't. I don't know of any secure hard drive manufacturers.
Right. And really, so the open source answer to all this is, hey, all of our hard drive source code should be open, and we should be able to, have signed hard drive firmware that corresponds with what's released on an open source system, and we can audit the code. And that's a lot of work, and frankly, no end user is going to do that. Most security people aren't going to audit the signing keys of their hard drive firmware, and right now the firmware is not signed anyway. But I think the point is, this stuff is so low level, it'll be really hard to detect, really hard to get rid of, and we can only hope that this thing doesn't go to a national security letter level. We can only hope that this stuff isn't pre-installed on all drives one day, that it's relegated for targeted attacks, because let's be honest, what the NSA does, while I consider it mostly evil, they do exist for a decent reason. They're a spy agency. All countries have spy agencies, and spy agencies are supposed to spy on bad guys. So what we'll do, or what the NSA will do, is they'll say, hey, we've got a terrorist cell here, or there's a bad guy here, a drug smuggler over here, and we need to get this data, so we're going to give him, this, we're going to hook up this VGA cable so we can see a screen. We're going to log his keystrokes with this USB toggle. Cool, great. You get a warrant, if he's in the US, you do that stuff, you track it, you go after him, you arrest the guy. Fantastic, no one's saying that's a bad thing. But if you do it en masse, that's when it becomes very dangerous. And we have to really hope that's not happening here and that it won't happen in the future. Luckily, we're all looking at this now.
And that's a double-edged sword, because we do want the security, we do want the safety, but we also want the privacy.
Right. And who's to say that this attack, this firmware won't be leveraged by some piece of malware somewhere to make unremovable malware unless you replace your hard drive. That's the real scary part about this.
And I don't know how you just buy a random open source hard drive, I guess.
Right, exactly. That, to my knowledge, that doesn't exist.
So,
but please, if you know of open source hard drive firmware, tell me. I'd love to know.
And then next is Freak. I haven't heard of this yet.
Everyone has got to name their vulnerabilities now. Apparently, you don't make the front page of TechCrunch unless your vulnerability's got a cool name and a logo. I don't think this one has a logo, though. It's on a technical scale, it's fairly average. It's an SSL downgrade attack, and a lot of clients have this version of SSL specifically because it was required in a government mandate way long ago when the U.S. government was making poor decisions about crypto. Way back in the day, crypto was classified as a munition. It was like, okay, you've got your Apache helicopter, you've got Abrams tanks, you've got AES-256. Like, it was all in the same category. Bullets and math.
You had to check the box when you bought a Dell machine that you would encrypt it and export it somewhere else. I remember clicking that box a few times.
Yeah, it was nuts. There are, I want to say PuTTY, the SSH client for Windows, I want to say PuTTY's page specifically has a thing there that says, hey, you can't download this in these countries because it contains cryptography that your government has outlawed. Really interesting stuff. But the U.S. was among one of those countries until there's a lot of history behind that. Really interesting story. We might go into it in a future episode. Let's just say the U.S. government has backed off of that poor policy. But to be able to export crypto, we made really bad ciphers, really bad stuff. And we said, oh yeah, you can export this one because we can crack it. It'll be fine. And a lot of browsers and a lot of technologies, because everything had to work together, implemented this bad crypto. What it basically does is, a man-in-the-middle attack says, hey, no, use this cipher, this really bad one that I've got over here, and I'm going to use this other one over here. Or the client says, yeah, I can use that one too, because I've got this cipher suite. And then the guy in the middle cracks it. It's a standard downgrade attack. There's nothing really too impressive or strange about this other than the entire reason it exists is because of a bad governmental policy.
Yeah.
That's about it. As far as the end user goes, keep your stuff up to date. I know Microsoft has or will be soon pushing a patch for Internet Explorer, and pay attention to iOS updates.
It's always generally keep up to date. That's generally your best bet, and you'll be okay. Google's forcing everyone on SSL3. And AES 256, everything has to be...
SHA-1 hashes will be deprecated here soon.
Yes.
And Microsoft actually started that. Google just moved the date up, which is kind of annoying. There's nothing truly wrong with SHA-1. It's just better to move off of it sooner rather than later.
Another episode will have to be, is Google right in forcing people to move faster rather than at their own pace? But which leads us in the perfect segue to the next story.
Oh, yes. So we all thought, Apple came out and they said, hey, all your stuff is going to be encrypted by default. You're going to turn it on. It's going to make some keys that we don't have access to. Law enforcement, sorry guys, we can't help you anymore. You're going to either have to crack strong encryption. Good luck with that. But we can't help you get into these devices anymore. Sorry. And Apple went on their merry way. Google said, oh man, they're totally going to be more secure than us. We have to do something about that. Let's make Lollipop encrypted by default. This went out on the newswire. Everyone was clapping and cheering, saying, yeah, Google's fighting for the user. They're like Tron. And I probably dated myself with that reference.
No, there was a remake.
I guess that's true. I guess that's
2 years
true.
ago. So no, you're still good.
With a fantastic soundtrack. But Google quietly shoved it under the rug, and they changed the rules a little bit by saying, actually, manufacturers, you don't actually have to encrypt it by default. We changed our minds because it makes the phones run a little too slow, in our opinion. It's the wrong move. They probably shouldn't have done that. And,
I can go into a full nut job and be crazy with the fact that I don't think most people connect their phone to their computer anymore, whether it's iOS, whether it's Android. Right. So I think the operating system has provisions that while it's unlocked, it can beam stuff over, whether it's Push Bullet or Play Services does this, or any of the apps that do the cross-platform and sending data over. And Apple has it with their iOS sync. So there's no reason why it can't be encrypted. I think the manufacturers just need to figure this out. But I have a feeling they want to hit that 90-day deadline, and they can't. And people are clamoring for the new operating system. Everyone wants Lollipop. And they probably asked Google, and Google said, fine, you don't have to. But be ready next time. Figure it out.
Yeah.
5.1, you're going to have to.
In their documents, it said, now this will most likely change to a you must encrypt your user data partition by default when someone turns on the phone. Not recommended. You must do it at some point in the future. But right now, it's just strongly recommended, which means no one's going to do it. It's annoying because these phones last a long time now. I mean, I've been rocking my Nexus 4 for ages, it feels like. And luckily the Nexus gets updates, but a lot of these phones just get out of the gate. They don't ever see an update again. It would have been really great to encrypt this by default, but Google, it looks like, lost their nerve or couldn't make the hardware function as fast as they wanted it to be. So a little disappointed in that. I understand where they're coming from, but in my mind, the security benefit outweighs a lot of the usability, because I've been on slow encrypted devices before, and frankly, they're not that bad. They're really not.
And they did say it. They said it out of the bat. They said it in the L preview that it was going to be. So even before they mentioned it, and I'm sure the manufacturers had it, and Motorola on their E seemed to do it, and their Moto X and everything else. So this shouldn't be a problem for Samsung with their octo-core, 3 gigs of RAM, and the M9 and everything else. But I think it was, we have to get TouchWiz working. We need our S voice. And I love telling people it's S voice that gets you from not having lollipop. Anyway, we're over, so let's end.
Yep, I think that's it. And next time, hopefully there aren't any security fires.
So anyway, guys, we will see you next week. Have a good night. Bye.
See you guys.